Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I have a very, very interesting full review to do for you. So I have the camera out today because I was filming a full review of the other knife that I bought at CCKS, and while I was at it, I figured I would finally do my review of the Tracker Dan BloodShark. This is one of those knives that, if I'm being totally honest, brutally honest, I never really understood what was going on with these. And what I had perceived was that they were massively inflated on the secondary market, like stupid expensive for what they were, in my opinion. And I didn't understand why. And so at CCKS this last year, in October or whatever, it's now January that I'm filming this, goodness, I had the chance to get one of these because I already have a couple of Koenigs, and so the way the line works there, you can pick a ticket if you're there early enough to go and like be sure that you're going to get something at one of a couple of key tables that most people are there early to line up for. And so the options are Koenig is one of them, but like I said, I already have Koenigs. The other ones are Strider, and I want to say like Steel Flame usually does it, something like that. No interest in that from me. If you're into Steel Flame, cool, enjoy your rings. And then Tracker Dan is one of them all the time. And I've never even wanted to go down the route of Tracker Dan because I always just kind of thought it was hilarious and chuckled at it. But this year it was like, I don't know what I'm actually going to do. So when the time came for me to pick my ticket, I was like, let's do it. I'm going to get a Tracker Dan. So I knew that at table, a basic one like this should be about $500. I think I paid $500. It might have been $550. This is a BloodShark. That's the model that I had heard the most. Like, I had heard the name spoken the most, and so I thought it would be the right place to kind of check out the knife. And man, it was interesting. Even just being in line with the other people who were there to get Tracker Dans and were more serious about it than I was. I did it on a whim because I was like, oh, I'll finally do it, so I know what it's all about. People get excited about these knives. And there's a collector base for them, people that have a whole bunch of them and keep buying more. And there's subtle variations between like what the handles are wrapped in and different height sheaths, and there's a world to it. I'm sure I'm not even scratching the surface by naming those two things, but people love these things. And the guys who were in line for these seemed pretty diehard to me. So anyways, I got up to the front, I picked this. The knife wasn't sharpened when it came to the show, and so if I had gone to day 2 of the show, I could have picked it up, but I wasn't able to make it to the Sunday portion of the show, so they had to ship it to me, which took a little bit. So it took me a while to actually get this knife, but I got it, and I immediately started putting it in pocket and seeing what it was all about. So I'm going to dive into what I really think about the knife, and I'm going to try to be, I don't know. It's not like I'm going to try to be honest. I always try to be honest. I'm going to try to see through in some ways like what my preconceived notions were and be able to say where I think this knife is good. Because for a long time, I just made fun of these. I just made fun of them because I thought it was hilarious that someone would spend $500 table price on one, let alone the $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 that I was seeing on the secondary for what I thought was in no way going to possibly be worth it. So I'm going to try to remove some element of that and be able to talk about the things that this knife actually does well, because there are a few things that it actually does well, and I kind of get it a little more now after experiencing one, why there's a following for it. But if you're looking for like whether I think they're worth it, I don't even think they're worth it for table. I think $500 to ask for this, to me, seems a little bit obscene. I totally see why they're doing it though, because if there's so much demand for it, as a maker, I get why they want to get a decent sized piece of the money that's going to be made on these knives. If they know that the second it goes to secondary, it's going for double that, like, okay, I see how they got there. So I'm not even necessarily like throwing shade at the maker for doing that, because the market seems to be what's dictating that price to me, if I were a guessing man. But no, this should not be a $500 knife. And the people who are buying it for $1,000, it baffles me. That being said, am I going to go after I shoot this review and list this knife for $1,000? Yes. Am I a scumbag for doing that? I don't know. You tell me. But if that's the market going rate on them, then why would I only make half the money that I can on it? I'd like to have that extra $500 over what I paid for it. Sure, that would be great. And I bet if the market is what I think it has been, then someone will be happy to pay that. If not, I'll come down. Whatever. But it's baffling to me that these go for what they go for. And we're now 5 minutes into this, and I haven't even pulled the knife out of the sheath, so some people are going to be screeching at the screen right now. So the BloodShark is a very simple knife. It is a fixed blade, as you can see. We've got a tang that comes all the way to back here, and then this one is wrapped in, I think it's called hemp cord. And it's, if I were being mean about it, I'd say it looks like a prison shank. If I were being nice about it, I would say it looks rugged. They're not going for like pretty fit and finish here. I'm pretty sure the way that this is finished, it's just from post heat treat. It's kind of left alone. And then we've got a Scandi grind. So basically, instead of having an edge or a like primary bevel with a micro edge bevel, we just have one tall edge bevel. It's a cool way to grind a knife. You see it, I've seen it much more often on like bushcrafty knives than I have on like self-defense focused knives, which is definitely, this is a self-defense, tactical, military guy, that world knife. And that market has its place. I'm not that guy. I've yet to be in a knife fight. I hope I never am in one. If I was going to be in one, would this be the knife I'd pick? I don't know. Maybe that time will come and I'll be like, dang it, I shouldn't have sold my BloodShark because now I just lost a knife fight and I would have won if I had this. I doubt it. But I'm already being mean. I can see, though, that there are some good things about this knife. I think the Scandi grind is actually pretty freaking cool. I think it actually works quite well. If I'm to be totally fair, though, like this knife was Scandi ground on the table and wasn't sharpened yet. So there actually is like a tiny micro bevel on it to where it's finally sharpened, I guess would be the only way I'd know how to define that. So it's like a weird Scandi grind. Maybe that's common on Scandi grinds. I don't know. The way I understood Scandi grinds was like that the bevel itself was the edge and the edge bevel all at once. This one has like a tiny, tiny micro bevel at the bottom of the Scandi. I don't know. But yeah, so I don't even know where to go with this knife. I guess I'll just do Ergo's carry cutting, and I won't do action because it's not a folder, but Ergo's carry cutting. Let's talk about those things. Ergonomically, this knife, to me, is okay. This portion of the handle feels really tall to me, especially for how thin the handle profile is. So I find that when I'm in a hammer grip and I'm kind of like actually really squeezing, bearing down on this knife, the front of the handle, like where my pointer finger lands most of all, but even kind of at this transition, I find to be a little uncomfortable. If you had bigger hands than I do, I wear a medium glove, but I fill it out real well. If you have bigger hands, maybe that'll be more comfortable for you than it is for me, but I don't find it to be like a shining star in the comfort department, at least not in a hammer grip or a saber grip. It's just like okay in those areas. In a reverse grip, which I imagine a lot of people, because of the nature of this knife, a lot of people probably draw this in a reverse grip, carry it to be in a reverse grip, and use it in a reverse grip a lot. It feels more comfortable in this grip than it did in a saber grip to me, which is weird because you'd think the tallness back here, now having my pinky land on there, would be more bothersome, but it's not. If anything, it just makes this like thumb spot make a ton of sense where I can wrap over the top, and it feels really locked in for this. So this to me is the only grip where this knife shines. Once I go draw cut, it feels uncomfortable because I've got that point now landing in my palm. If I go forward grip draw cut, same thing, that point becomes real uncomfortable. So to me, this knife shines in a reverse grip, and it's just okay in a saber or a hammer grip. Carry. This is my favorite part of the knife. As fixed blades go, this thing carries awesome. This sheath is wonderful. It can be used in either orientation, so the knife can go in this way or this way. What that means is I can put this clip into my pocket, or the sheath into my pocket with the clip out, like I would a folder, basically. In my front right pocket, I could carry this like I would a primary folder. And if I have in this orientation, so it's on this pocket, if I have it like this, I draw into a reverse grip. Awesome. If I don't want to draw into a reverse grip, all I have to do is turn the knife around and resheath it that way. And now I draw into a saber grip. So I love that. This is a great bi-directional sheath. I don't know if that's the right term. The fit in the sheath is awesome, super secure. The clip, this is an Ulti clip if I'm not mistaken, is great. It's been totally reliable in a pocket. It's been reliable on a belt. I've even tried it in waistband and it's been good there. So the sheath is my favorite part of the knife. If I could get a sheath just like this for just about every fixed blade I own, I'd probably do it. This is an awesome sheath, and the nature of it being able to flip in both directions and still look like a normal, fairly slim profile sheath, it's great. I really, really, really like the sheath. So this is one of the best carrying EDC fixed blades I've ever stumbled into on accident, which is super surprising to me. That's not what I was expecting to get out of this. But yeah, I mean, I can even put it like back right pocket and have it in either orientation, and I can keep drawing it that way. I can go front right pocket. I could have it non-dominant hand on my left side. I can have it on my belt. I can have it, I guess I could put it on a pack. This clip would totally work for that, and I could draw it vertically. Like, this sheath setup works great. So kudos to that. That to me is the best part of the knife. If there's a part of this knife that justifies the $500 price tag, it's how good the sheath is. Which, again, I was not expecting, but here we are. It's a really, really great sheath. Would I prefer a different knife in it? Yes. And, oh man, some Tracker Dan fans are going to be so mad at this. This knife is a functional tool. And you could probably make the argument, if you're a fanboy of this knife, that it is a tool for a job that I don't even do. I'm not getting into knife fights. I'm not looking for them. I'm not planning on it. I would rather avoid them. To me, a person who mostly carries knives for everyday carry type of applications, or fixed blades, if they're not an EDC fixed blade, if it's a bigger guy, something like that, it's more of like a belt knife for outdoor use. This, to me, doesn't fit that use very well. It doesn't fit the EDC use very well. Other than being super carryable, it's just not a ergonomic profile or a blade profile that I love to use for the types of things I use my EDC knives for all the time. But if you're the type of guy who, like, this is the tool that you think is the best for defensive use or whatever, and that's super important to you, then more power to you. I'm all for that. Like, go for it, run with it, love it for you. It's just not that, I'm not that guy, and it's not that way for me. So, yeah, I guess the only category I still haven't touched on, I'm all over the place here. This is a confusing knife for me to review. I haven't talked on cutting performance. This knife cuts okay. It's a fairly thin blade stock, actually, to begin with, so that helps it. The grind is definitely functional. It works, but for the types of things that I do the most, it doesn't shine over like folders that I have, or frankly even EDC fixed blades that I have, because they're designed for EDC type uses. This is designed to be, I don't know, I'm pretty sure there's a big military audience for these. Maybe this is something people are carrying into deployments and combat, and maybe that's where it shines much more than it does in my uses. Again, that's fine. But for me, I found the cutting to be acceptable but underwhelming for things like cardboard and zip ties and all that kind of stuff. It works. The ergos, for me, work against it. If you have a decent blade with great ergos, in my opinion, that knife is going to cut better than a knife with an amazing blade and crappy ergos. Like, so much of cutting performance is how your hand interacts with the tool, and for me, this just doesn't feel amazing. The best application I could see for myself with this knife would be self-defense, which is just not generally what I'm like going for with the knife I choose to carry. If I was going to a sketchy part of town late at night for something, sure, this could go front right pocket in this orientation so that I could draw it in a reverse grip and be ready to go real quick. Cool. That's not a life I live. Anyway, I keep justifying the type of life I live in this video. Anyway, this is it's a super different knife. I'm going to be mean again here for a second. This knife, why? Why is it $500? I get there's a supply and demand element. I understand all of that. And I'm generally kind of a defender of like, if it's expensive, let it be. I'm not trying to say somebody should start price policing these, but I get the head scratching that not only so many of my friends were doing when they'd see these knives listed for insane amounts of money, but this head scratching that I was doing, I feel like to me now seems even more justifiable now that I've actually handled one and confirmed that this knife is the type of fit and finish and design and material selection that I thought it was and kind of knew it was. But I've experienced it, and for my favorite part about it to be the Kydex sheath, and for everything else to be like, I don't know, $500 seems crazy. And that's as cheap as these get, table price. This was one of the least expensive knives on the table. I think maybe if you get one of the little teeny guys, it might be a little less expensive, but probably not even that much. And the BloodShark was the one that I've heard the most about, so it's the one I wanted to go for. And $500 is about as cheap as they get. Would this knife get better with a different type of cord wrap? I think he mostly just does cord wraps. But yeah, probably. This is like the basic cord wrap, but it also gets more expensive from that point. And I just like spending even more than $500 on one of these. It seems crazy to me. It's going to keep happening, though. I assume people love them, and the collector market goes deep, and the people who love these just love these. And more for you guys. I'm not going to get in your way anymore. I don't plan to buy any more Tracker Dans. It's not a game that I personally have interest in playing, and that's fine. So I guess that's where I'll leave it. I don't get it. Still, after owning one, I don't really get the fascination and the allure. I think there are other really cool tactical knives out there that are a much better value proposition that, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to go out and test them, but I would guess are as efficient for the job they're made to do as this is. And more power to Tracker Dan. They can keep on running with it. So that's going to be it. I'm not going to keep this knife. I'm going to sell it. I wish I could keep the sheath, though, and fit something else in it, because this sheath is awesome. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this was in some way entertaining. It's at least different. All right. Have a good one.